Welcome to Midlife Matters. I'm Marie, and each week I'm joined by my friends Julie and Mindy to talk about all the topics keeping women in the middle years up at night. Listeners, today we're talking about mothering ourselves out of a job. As our kids get older, we find our roles changing, and it's time to take a step back. Join us as we share the ways we're trying to do this and discuss where we've been successful and where we need to do a little more. Let's get started. Listeners, today we're talking about mothering in honor of Mother's Day, which is coming up this weekend. And more specifically, we're talking about mothering ourselves out of a job. Someone said a mother's job is to teach her children not to need her anymore. The hardest part of that job is accepting success. And although we don't know who said it, it seems like it must have been a woman in midlife. Don't you think, Mindy and Julie?
Definitely.
Oh. Yeah, who's feeling all the heartaches and the joys.
Yes, who's starting to see her success, but realizes that, oh, this also means that I'm out of a job.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it is bittersweet because you don't want to go back, but it is sad.
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
So we're going to be talking about some of those things that you let go in midlife and some of those parenting ties that might bother you that you're not tied to, and some of them that you're like, thank goodness I never have to do that again. So let's start out with some of the parenting ties that are easier to snip than other ones. What are you guys glad that you never have to do again?
Well, with the senior in college, I'm glad that college tuition is over.
Wow.
Paid that last bill and we're done. So that feels good.
Yes. I was thinking about just like all the things that every time I've been done, I'm like, yay, like the last kid you potty train, the last kid you teach to swim, the last kid you teach to ride a bike, the last kid you teach to drive, like all those skills that are very necessary, but none of us walk into knowing how to teach it. Like we know how to do it,
Right.
but we don't really know how to impart that knowledge. And it's almost miraculous that someone else learns from us.
You are so right. And there's so many things when they're little, all these milestones, drinking from a cup or drinking from a straw. I remember sleeping through the night being kind of the major one that I was thrilled to get to. And then the years of diapers. I do remember when I finally had to stop buying diapers and I just felt like I got my life back and I got my money back. Like it was such a huge part of our budget. And Marie, I can only imagine that you were in the same boat.
Yes, 3 in diapers for a long time.
Oh my goodness. Yes. And so now I've got teenagers and I'll still be driving the last one. He's 14, but I'm going to be driving a lot less when my 15-year-old turns 16 this summer. And so they work at the same place. They're going to go to the same school. My last kid is essentially graduating from middle school.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another milestone that we're reaching. But yeah, driving the kids around, now that it's my last ones, I'm going to be sad, though I was okay kind of, signing off that duty with my other 2.
Right. Yeah, you do tend to savor it when you know it's your last time. Mm-hmm. Funny things do these types of things happen to you? I'm sure they do in midlife, but Steve and I went for a walk at a park that had hiking trails on Sunday afternoon. And it was like 5 miles. So it was a long hike, and like 45 minutes into it, we come across this family who's trying to hike with a stroller and a kid who's walking, and the kid who's walking is crying on the ground, and they don't want to go any farther. And like you pass them and you feel sympathy, and then you are walking up the hill yourself and you still hear this kid crying in the background, and you can just remember that feeling. I said, oh, I don't miss those days. And Steve said, I know, it's like you're trying to do something fun as a family and like someone has to be having a meltdown. There has to be a problem. Like it's like forced family fun, and it truly is forced on the part of the parents.
Yes.
Well, and it's like you think, why are they out here doing this? That doesn't look fun. But then you remember it's because they have to get out of the house.
You got to get out.
You just have to get out.
Yes.
Yes. And it's good for the kids. But I mean, I remember on a hike similar, it always comes back to my mind. My oldest son pushed my younger son into the water just to see what would happen. So now the kid has to hike with wet shoes. And you know how uncomfortable it is. So, of course, it causes a big crying. Right. Like, there's just never a family outing where something like that doesn't happen.
No, I felt like for quite a few years, one of my boys was riding home naked by the end of the hike. Inevitably, somebody was falling in water. And even if there was a teeny tiny puddle on the way down from Stone Mountain, there's hardly any puddles. You're coming down this huge granite rock. Yet Grant found the one puddle and we had to strip him and put him in the van on the way home.
Yes. My youngest fell into a koi pond on Easter Sunday at a restaurant.
Oh, lovely. Was
with his Easter outfit?
You get to guess which child that was.
Well, you did say your youngest.
Oh, okay. It was David.
Was this before food or after food?
I think it was while we were waiting. And so he is in his little smocked Easter outfit and his little white shoes. And of course, he did not deal with uncomfortableness at all. So I think we were done after that. It was.
You can't even remember it was before or after food because the whole meal was ruined by that.
Well, no, I hate to even tell you what restaurant it was because I said Easter, right? It was Sonic.
Oh, is there a koi pond at Sonic?
There was. There's not anymore.
Wow. This was the nice Sonic back in the day.
Yeah, we couldn't get into any other restaurant and we had made no plans of our own. So us and another family ended up there. And I don't know if David fell or if he was pushed, but
because why, Julie? It all goes back to what you said before because you can't go home. Home would actually be worse.
Right.
Home would be worse.
Bryce and I still sit when we're in a restaurant together. Longer the days that we had to take care of a baby or toddler, but we still remember so well that we didn't sit at a restaurant together for years because we were always taking turns walking the baby or the toddler. Somebody was having a fit, so we never ate together. When we were at a restaurant. And so Marie and Steve, kind of like you guys seeing that family on the trail. And Bryce and I feel relief so often. And I hate to say that, but I look at these families and I'm like, man, I'm so glad we're not there anymore. I mean,
I say that all the time. Like,
I feel for you guys and I am glad it's not me.
I wouldn't go back. Well, it's funny. You guys went way back to all the kids stuff, but I was thinking more recent. Maybe it's because I have a college senior, but I'm glad to never fill out another FAFSA form.
Yeah, I can't say that yet, Julie.
I know,
or I would say that.
Or just college applications, scholarship information, anything that has a deadline that I'm not totally in charge of. And then the final one is insuring them. Doesn't that feel good?
I love it when they get off your insurance. I am there because I've now stopped deleting the emails from the high school because as soon as my girls graduate at the end of May, I'm just deleting anything that says Brentwood High School. We are done. I never want to hear from these people again. I don't want to hear from the principal, the office, daily announcements, teachers, sign up for this, send in your money. No, I don't want to hear any of it.
Marie, you're not going to volunteer at the high school?
No. Yes. I am going to be very, very excited. So yes, I do hear you on some of those things where now I never fill out FAFSA. But I do know it's a pain because Steve complains about it. And
John, I have never filled one out either, but it's just always looming. Have we done that?
I know. But now we're going to be having 3 kids in college, so we'll be filling out plenty of FAFSAs.
Yes, I hear all that you guys are saying, and I just appreciate so much that you're going to be able to walk me through these next 4 years.
I know.
4 years of high school, and then there's college.
Yeah, but there definitely are parenting things to be happy that you're done with, you know.
I have one more thing, actually. I'm so sorry.
Sure. Yeah,
this was a funny conversation I just had with a friend the other day about having adult children. I told her, I said, I was telling her Grant was coming home. And I said, every time he comes home, he's in that stage where I always check, like, do you need socks or underwear? Like, I'm going to still buy that. He's at that in between. He's out of the house, but he's still, he's 19. And I said, actually, when Abby got married, I finally stopped buying her underwear. And it was so funny, but I didn't realize that was a milestone.
No, all those things that are used to being in your head, as soon as you can knock one out, it's like you gain headspace.
Yeah. Yes. So there's a milestone for you. You get married, you buy your own panties.
All right. Well, this is a question, Julie, that you came up with, and I really had to do some thinking about it, but I think there's a lot of depth here. So listen to the question, listeners, and we definitely want to hear your thoughts on this too. But Julie said, how can, in quotes, good mothering become an idol of control? And how do you make war against that particular idolatry? Julie, why don't you just point us in the right direction on this? Because this is a deep question.
Well, I know for me, I have a doer personality. And so it's always tempting for me to just do too much. Like, it's easier than delegating. I would rather just do it, get it done, and make sure it's done right. So I think we could do that in the name of conscientious mothering, good mothering, like we're doing the best for them when maybe we're not. So I think it got easier with each child, but with the last child particularly, I've had to consciously pull back on things and say, what could he learn from this instead of me doing it, and just holding on to them more loosely, I think kind of strips you of that feeling of control or that illusion of control. And like I said, that's gotten easier with each kid, but just remembering our kids really don't belong to us, and I think the more you let go, the more you have to trust God with their lives, that he really does love them even better than I do. And I think that's kind of hard to believe, hard to fathom that anybody could love them more than we do. I don't know. They deserve the same grace that we've been given, like to figure things out, and not just to be told this is the right thing.
Yeah.
So we all like control, I think. And, so we just have to ask, is this what's best for them?
Yeah.
Like, sure, it would get done and it would get done right and it would get done on time. But,
right.
What could they learn from it if we left it to them?
Yeah, I was thinking about what is good mothering? Because you put that in quotes, because there really is. There's so many things that can fall within that same definition, even things that seem the opposite. And a lot of times we compare ourselves to other people. And if they're doing something, we think, oh, well, that must be what good mothers do. So if I didn't do that, then I'm not a good mother or, whatever. But I was thinking about, I know that we say this, but do we really believe that there isn't any perfect definition of good mothering? What is good for one family might not be good for another. And I know we kind of say that off the cuff, but it really is true. Everybody has a different set of circumstances. I was even thinking about some people might say, well, good parents buy their kid a car at 16. And other people will say, good parents make their kid work for their car at 16. And those are both of those parents can be good. You know what I'm saying? There's so many things in parenting that are like that. And last night it came up that somebody said they were paying for grad school for their kid. And I immediately fall into this trap of, oh, do good parents do that? Am I a bad parent that I didn't pay for grad school? But both of those things are true. You can either pay for grad school if you think that's what a parent should do, or you cannot because you think, okay, well, I was paying this far and the rest is on them. There's just, and I think we can get down on ourselves when we compare and we say, oh, well, they did this, so that means that that's what good parents do. And if I didn't do it, then I'm not a good parent. Do you guys ever fall into that kind of thinking?
Yes, a lot. And in the different stages, you're trying to figure things out, you don't know how you feel about a certain thing until it comes up with your first child. And then you're talking to your husband, you're trying to figure out, well, what do we think about this? And you kind of start to form some sort of flexible plan. And then if you have more kids go through that, then you tweak it. Right. Well, my kids still, the younger ones more than the older ones, but we're still at the stage where my middle school and high schooler come home and they tell us all the time what bad parents we are,
That's true.
This kid has a pool. This kid's mom does this. This kid's dad does this, and you guys make us do this. You guys won't do that. And so we're in those daily things with them. But having now 2 that are out of the house, it's really nice. We're finally getting some positive feedback on things that we tried. They're like, that made it harder, but I'm glad you guys stuck with that. Or I didn't like this at the time, but now I really like that we did that you guys did that with us, for us, didn't let us have that, whatever. So it's just hard because you don't know until you see the result. And still, it's just, you're guessing, like you're praying and you're guessing.
I think we're all just trying to figure it out. So you naturally look around you and see what other people are doing. And I think I felt that more when they were little. Like, these are such superficial, silly things, but like, were you a good mother if your kids had on like handmade Easter outfits or store-bought? Because my friends were all making handmade. So, I had
you had the wrong
That's
friends,
a lot of pressure, Julie.
I don't know. You and I should have been friends.
Just what they look like. Are they matching today? Or is their hair combed and things like that? And looking back, I think, gosh, none of those things mattered. And not that they were wrong, but they just created a lot of extra work. A lot of extra work.
Well, and it's different if you're the mom who enjoys making the clothing and you're not thinking about whether this is what good mothers do because you just enjoy doing it. But if you're only doing it because you think good mothers do it and you hate doing it, then you should get rid of that out of your definition.
I didn't hate it, no. But I remember, like, this is just a good example. A friend of mine jokingly said, like, your house is too clean. She goes, you must not be a good parent. She was totally joking.
No, but I thought of that, Julie. Like, you see those signs, my house is dirty. Basically, is what they're saying. My house is dirty because I'm playing with my kids. If your house is clean, then you're not a good mother. I hate those signs.
Well, she was totally joking, like, I must be a better parent because I'm not spending all my time on my house. I'm spending it with my kids,
No, I mean, she might have been joking, but those signs can lead to a lot of guilt. Like, I'm a better mother if my house is clean. Like, if there's some organization, I'm a happier, better person. Like, I can't be a good mother in a chaos,
Right. It doesn't have to mean that the stuff is more important than your kids. Right. You could look at it as, I'm teaching stewardship. We take care of it. There's just different perspectives on, because I know some people, like, let their kids wrestle in the house. I remember some people that had all boys. They said, we have patched our sheetrock so many times, like big holes in the walls. And I thought that just would never happen in our house because we just didn't do that. It was like, and I don't know, maybe our kids thought we cared more about our stuff than them, but it was just like, no, we take care of things. That was our perspective. Like, like this would cost money to repair. We're going to take care. We're going to be good stewards of the things we have.
Yeah.
So that they last longer and we don't replace them.
I was having it turned into like a new lady that I met on Saturday. And our conversation went to a great place really fast. And I was so blessed by it. But we both have some adult children. And she made the comment, she said, like, you think you're doing all these things for your kids. And if one turns out right, essentially, in your eyes, like they're doing the things that the world perceives as this is how you should live your life, you feel like you have done a great job. And then you have a kid that doesn't do things that the world says is right. And you think, well, was that me? Because I felt like I did a great job, with the first kid. But I think anytime that you feel like everything that you do will bring out this controlled outcome in your child, that's where the flaw is. Like you actually aren't in charge of the kid that does one thing, and you're actually also not in charge of the kid that does the other thing. So I think we so often feel like if we are good mothers, then we will have good children. Well, what's the definition of a good child? And So then it makes you question as they get older, well, was I a good mother?
Well, and at what age are you judging them? Like they have a lifetime to mature. They have a lifetime to become who God is asking them to be, you know. And it's not a vending machine. Like I put this in, I get this out.
After you have a couple kids, you realize, oh, I did do the same thing with both, and they turned out differently.
Yeah. There's a reason with one boy, I'll say, no, I want you to go out with your friends tonight. I want you to stay out late. And there's a reason to one of my other children in the same house. I'm like, no, you're not going anywhere. Like you need to be home by 8:00. Like
so true.
Two different kids, you know what I mean? Like every kid is different.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much. I mean, good mothers check their kids' cell phones. Good mothers have the location feature turned on their cell phones. Like, I don't have any of that. If my kid comes up missing, I don't know where they are because I feel differently about that. Does that make me a bad mom? I mean, some people would say that makes you a horrible mom. Other people would say, no, you've given some appropriate freedom with appropriate ages. Like, you don't know. You can't win.
No.
That's funny because that was one of my other ties that was easy to snip was just constantly knowing where they are. And I don't have the locator on the phone. I remember when Molly first went to college, I actually wanted her to call me the first couple of nights when she got back into her dorm. Well, that lasted about a week, you know, and I don't even know if the locator option was available back then, but I have friends who still have their adult children that might even be married on location. And I don't think mine would want that. And I don't want that. Like, I don't need to know it. It is so freeing to just not know.
All right. Well, I'm raising my hand because we are that family. And it's a funny thing. Like it's not, and I think because it's in the right vein, like the kids are checking up on me. Abby will call me like, oh, I see you're at Target in Auburn. And I'm like, yeah, I'm living the good life today. And it's just really like, it's a fun thing. And so we do keep the locator on and I kind of appreciate it, you know, and I'm like, and it's more for the fact that I want to call her. I check her location first. Oh, she's at work, you know, I can't call her right now, but, no, it's just one of those, it's kind of a fun, I see them, I don't know. It's more of a friend thing. I don't do it with any of my friends, but when I see my adult children as friends.
But even like just when they come home at night, no matter how old they are, you're kind of listening for that door to open or what, you know what I mean? Like, not that you care what time they come. Like my son is senior in college, but it's a little unsettling to know like, oh, it's 2:00 in the morning and he's not here, you know, but if he lived out and was gone, I just wouldn't know and wouldn't care, you know?
I don't check it for that.
That's something to look forward to.
Yeah.
Yeah. No kidding.
All right. Well, what are some natural concerns as adult sons and daughters marry and start families of their own? What are some ways you're learning to see their ever-expanding world as a gift rather than a threat? And we do get listeners that email us requesting that we talk about, you know, children that are married. Like, what's it like to have kids that are married? And, you know, I think that we all have natural concerns about that before they get married. Like, what are some of those natural concerns that probably most people can identify with?
A joke in our family from the time that we found out Nathaniel was a boy was that we are going to have 3 daughters-in-law one day. And Bryce would teasingly say that to me. Mindy, you're going to be a mom of 3 daughters-in-law. Ha, 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 ha. And so that has been, it's been a prayer of my heart though, because I think that is a natural thing that we hear that your sons leave. And I know Marie has talked about that and how she felt with Davis's wedding. And I have that concern. Like I've been able to watch my daughter get married and bring in this lovely, handsome son-in-law that we have. And he's added to our family. He hasn't taken away anything. He's added himself and he's awesome. But I think about, like, I worry about having 3 divas come into my home and completely changing the dynamic of our family, you know, or stealing my son away, or all these things that I hate to say out loud, but I pray against, because that's the natural tendency, is to think like they're going to take my kid.
Yeah. I put down like 3 questions that you immediately feel like, I sort of felt this with my daughter too. Like, will they still need me? We want to be needed, not in the put my shoes on, type of way, but we want to have a role where we are valued. And so will they still call me when there's a problem? Will they still tell me things? Will they still seek out my company? Like, will they still need me? I think it all kind of comes back to that. Like, when I look at all the fears I have, they all come back to the fear of like being cut off from someone you love, who you've had this relationship with, and you have been the source for so long of, you were their first person they called to tell something to. You were their first, if there was a problem, you were their first line of what should I do? Like, you just have been the primary person, and now you're going to be the secondary person. Whether it's your son or daughter, you're still going to be the secondary person, and you don't know what that's going to be like.
Yeah, I think definitely when they form new family ties, there's the fear of being replaced or forgotten. Like, are those ties going to be stronger than ours were? I think before they're married, just launching, like, they've got new careers. How are they going to do in that? Like, there's so much uncertainty in the world. And I think if we look back, we didn't see it as uncertainty. We just saw these opportunities. But when it's your kid, you're like more aware of the pitfalls, Yeah. Will they have a good marriage? That's something, I've prayed for since they were little babies. So it's not something I'm just going to quit thinking about, like, oh, they got married. Like, that's going to be a continual thing, is praying for their marriage. And those are the things I think about. Yeah.
And Mindy, I feel for you on your natural fears, because I think we can't know until we get there. How have you started to see, well, you said that you have already started to see, like, Abby's marriage and world expanding is actually a gift to you.
It is a huge blessing to, first of all, love Joey as much as we do, and all the boys look up to him, and he's added so much to our family, and they're both about to graduate from college, and they both are about to start working full time, and they're about to celebrate their first year anniversary. And it just brings me so much joy to hear, first of all, that their marriage is thriving. They seem really happy. They'll FaceTime us and we get to see both of them. And it is truly a gift. And I could have never imagined seeing her with him and thriving, and their own little family starting, between the two of them. So that's new for us and just been amazing. So, and we haven't even stepped into the grandkid stage or anything like that yet. I'm just thrilled with their beginning. Mm-hmm. Last summer, after Abby was married, Bryce and I both had a season of grieving, where she used to call me first, and now I was second, if she called me at all, because she was calling her husband, and Bryce really felt displaced in a way that surprised both of us. And it took months and of just having a conversation here or there with them, and kind of keeping our, praying through our own concerns and talking with each other, and kind of saying, give them time, give them space. And then them just coming home every once in a while and interacting with them as a married couple to finally figure out, okay, we haven't lost our roles, but it has changed, and it's good. But there was a grieving season.
Right. And you will learn to start to embrace that role too, because just like we said that there are things that we're so glad to be done with, when your kids get married and you take on a different role, there are good parts about that too. But it just takes you a little while to learn to embrace them. I mean, it's nice. This is a small thing, but like, it's nice that when Abigail's hot water heater goes out, that's really not my problem to solve. That's Nick's problem to solve. Like, it's nice that like the problems aren't yours anymore. Or right. If Davis is making a decision that I think is kind of maybe not the smartest, if Maddie approved it, fine. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can let a lot of things go because it's like, well, that's on their spouse, like I don't need to worry about that anymore because they're making the decision together and it'll probably turn out fine.
Listen, Joey did their taxes this year and we were thrilled. We're like, oh yeah, we don't have to deal with Abby's taxes. not that she was difficult, but
one less thing to do.
You do learn to like having less on your mental space, and you do learn to value that second, that spouse, even just their contribution to your family, their jokes, their humor, the way that they interact with the siblings, like you learn to value all that, but it's a long relationship and there are building blocks.
Back to your question though, like feeling, learning to see their ever expanding world as a gift rather than a threat, like not just with family, but even just like that they're living on their own in a career, maybe in a church, in another community, like what they're contributing, like they're contributing adults, like, they're at a job and they're helping people and they formed new friends and their influence on those people. I think that's neat to think about. That they have a sphere of influence that you don't have anymore. They know people that you don't know.
Right.
And talk with people and interact. And so that sphere is way beyond you.
And that's interesting too. Like, I love to hear about my son's job. I love it when Abigail shares stories about things that she's doing. I like hearing those kinds of things. I'm not necessarily going to ever experience those, but I like hearing about them. And it's not like when I ask my high schoolers. I mean, I think I asked something about the prom and who went with who. And it's like, Mom, you don't know them. But they grow out of that as adults. And it's like, now they're willing to tell you their friends' names and they're not fearful of sharing things. Right. Or, they're willing to tell you more. You're just interested in the details of their life and they're mature enough to recognize that you're just interested.
You're not just checking up and
right.
keeping tabs. Yeah.
You're not hovering too much.
No. Yeah, adult kids aren't always on your back about every question you ask them, like teenagers are.
They're not. It's nice when they come home and remind the younger ones that Mom and Dad are pretty cool, actually.
Yeah. Well, as parents in middle age, it can be tempting to define the right way as our own way of doing things. How have you handled it when adult kids do things that don't look like what they learned at home? So it could be like financially or what church they choose or some gray areas that you've kind of struggled with over the years. Like, what do you do when it's your adult kid and you're like, oh, well, that's not the way I taught you to do that?
Depends on how serious the situation is.
True.
Yeah. Yeah. I can't say that I've run into a lot of that. I've mostly been happy that I'm not having to make that decision. A lot of times you think you want to be in control of decisions, but when it comes down right to it, you don't really know what the best thing for that person is. It's kind of nice that they're making their own decision.
Yeah, that's true. I don't even know what's right for me. And who am I to say that I would make the best decision for them? So, and that's what first of all, I said, you can't take it personally, which is very hard to do because obviously you believe what you spent years investing and teaching. It was important to you, but that doesn't mean they can't be living by some, overarching principles that you pass down without having to do things exactly the way you do them. The way you budget, the way you work with your finances or where you go to church, how you worship. We can't set ourselves as the standards because as they become adults, it's like we're now walking alongside them as believers, we're more equals. And I had a friend who used to say, we can't be our kids' Holy Spirit. That's not our job. And I think a lot of times we get in the way of that because our voice is so loud in their heads that they might not be able to hear from God. So just trusting him to lead them and convict them. And then the best thing we can do is just continue to live out our lives and try to be a good example.
I mean, there's going to be lots of things that come up over the years from small to big, but I think that in general, unless you're asked for your opinion or it really is truly a dangerous situation, probably they need to make the decision themselves and live with the consequences or, I don't know. I mean, at some point it's their decision.
Yeah. I heard our pastor say the best way to parent or to continue to be a parent to an adult child is hands off, prayers on, mouth shut.
Wow.
That's
right.
That pretty much sums it up.
That's a good word.
Right. I've only got one that's fully adulting. So I still feel like we're like Grant's kind of in and out of our home. And so there's that season. And I was even trying to explain Grant's season to Jacob and Nathan this week. And I said, he's adulting, but he comes home for intensive training courses.
Right. Well, and there is that transition. There is that
that's
transition.
almost harder, I think.
We're in the in between. And so like Grant needs us to get a driver's license. Like he still, he uses our address for his state of residency and his car tags and registration. And, so there's all these adulting things. It's like, yeah, even if he's supporting himself out of the home, he still needs us. And you know what I mean? Like he's still under our umbrella.
Right.
So,
right.
And so there are things that unfortunately he gets our attention on because they still affect us, like when he turns his taxes in,
right.
even though
that could still come back on you.
So there's things like that.
Right. Well, and that's true. Like there's when they're living in the home, then there's like a little bit different when they're in college. And then there's even more difference when they're completely out on their own. There is that transition. You might be grieving your kid's absence. Like maybe you're listening, you're thinking, oh, I would really love to go back to how it was. Like you're waiting for life to return to normal, but we can't go back. And so what helps you learn to live in this new place that you're still trying to understand?
Well, the article that I read to kind of spur this topic on mentioned the prophet Jeremiah when he was talking to the Israelites when they had been displaced into Babylon, in exile. They were kind of like longing to go home and get back to normal and the way things used to be. And he really warned them against kind of that camping mentality, like, oh, this is just temporary. And we can't think of this new phase of life as temporary, like we're going to get back to some sense of the way it was, because we're not going back. And I thought, well, that was a good way to kind of bridge the phases of life from where we were to the empty nest, to think about, okay, how can I put down roots in this new place, And I think that as we transition into a new role, it's definitely less. We're not doing the hands-on work anymore. Like you said, the decisions are theirs to make. We're more on the sidelines, advisory if we're asked, and even cheering them on. And so I think just accepting that role, not wanting to go back to the control, and then just moving on with your own life. Whatever.
Yeah. Get a dog, you guys.
No, don't get a dog. Travel.
Well, I'm saying, like, if you need something to still take care of, get a pet. Like, I don't know. I didn't have a dog before midlife, but I enjoy the fact that I can still love on and take care of a pet in place of how I used to be able to love on and take care of my kids. My kids, I still love them, but they're not, they're not snuggling up next to me. You know what I'm saying? I
don't have to watch TV alone.
Stuff. Yeah, like I want that hands-on care for something. Mindy, you're looking at me like you are crazy.
I'm not there yet. I for sure. Definitely not there yet, because I do feel that Bryce and I celebrate each time we have a little more freedom. And, and I'll say, like, keep celebrating what you can do now. Like both of our boys are working at Chick-fil-A tonight. We get to go to Home Depot and pick out new plants for the yard. Like we don't have to. I mean, like
you don't have to make dinner. Yeah,
we get to go to dinner if we want to.
Right.
So, I think each stage, you're leaving something behind and you're gaining something else. And so, if you can keep reminding yourself of what you're gaining or what you can do, and celebrating that. And then obviously making new friends in that season, friends that are similar and in the same season as you is so helpful. So that you can experience that alongside somebody else. And, like next year when I'm not driving, I'm actually going to be sad. People have asked me, like, there's people keep asking, what are you going to do, Mom, when you don't have to drive Jacob and Nathan or pick them up from school anymore? And I'm like, I actually don't know. I mean, this has been my whole life. So I know that sounds really silly to some people, but it really has been my whole life. And it really will like let me loose, and I won't know where my boundaries are, because my boundaries have always been school, like the start of school and the end of school. And that's my day. And so when I don't have that, I don't know what I'm going to do.
Right.
So
I think looking at it optimistically kind of creeps up on you, Mindy. Like the other day, I mentioned to Julie that I'd like to learn to play pickleball. And then I thought, hey, in the fall, if I want to learn to play pickleball, I can.
You can.
Or our oldest son called last night and said to Steve, hey, I'd like to go rock climbing in Ecuador in the fall. And I was like, Steve, I think you should go. But I wouldn't have been saying that if I was still going to have kids home in the fall, because for some reason, when you have kids in the home, it's like, what? You already travel for work and now you're going to travel for a vacation. And like, it just feels like I'm on. But in the fall, if everybody's at school and he wants to do that, like, it's just different. Like little things, you notice your mind. I know I'm noticing that my mindset is changing just a little bit at a time. And it's not like a big on-off switch.
Because I know you've had a lot of intrepidation. You mentioned in a previous podcast that the day that your girls graduate, you have been dreading. Like,
yeah. Like, I don't know what life will look like, but I'm starting to get glimpses of, there could be some fun parts of this, you know. So to give you hope, Mindy.
You could come see me when Steve goes to Ecuador, but you got that dog you got to deal with now. I mean...
But you do notice that you can start to maybe think, but it might be too early for you to think about it, Mindy.
Right. Good word.
So we've done a lot of discussing right now, and obviously mothering ourselves out of a job is a process. And we're all at different stages of it. Mindy, Julie, myself, we're all at different stages on the road of mothering ourselves out of a job. But I just appreciate the fact that I can talk with each of you and see that we're all going to eventually get there.
And I think you have to talk to other women. I mean, if you're in the traditional roles of husband as breadwinner and maybe mom staying at home, because when you talk to them, they're like, you should be looking forward to this. This is great. You've done your job. You're a success. And all that you've worked yourself out of a job. But I told my husband, no other job says you did great. You've come to the end and now you're fired. Like that's just not the way it works. You usually get promoted and things get better and better. So it's said no other job is like this, where you did good and then you're out of a job. There's nothing to prepare you for that.
But I do think that if you talk to women on the other side, they might say that it actually is a promotion when
I know, but I meant like when you're first facing it.
Yes.
When you're first facing looking ahead into that unknown, it's
right. It can be a scary,
intimidating.
Yeah, definitely. We would love to hear from listeners. Come and encourage us on where you are on the road to mothering yourself out of a job. Have you struggled with it? Do you feel like you're doing an awesome job? What stage are you at? We would love to hear. You can find us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast, or you can email us at midlifematterspodcast.com. Well, before we go, we have a little Mother's Day quiz we want to give to all listeners. Now, see what you get right on this. Julie, ask away.
All right, here's some trivia. What's the highest documented number of children born to one mother?
30.
I was going to say 28, so around the same.
Ooh.
Okay, you're not going to believe it. And I verified this on several places. 69.
What? How is that even possible?
And it was over a 40-year period. She had 16 pairs of twins, 7 sets of triplets, and 4 sets of quadruplets, and 67 of them survived infancy.
That is crazy. Okay, Mother's Day award goes to her.
Yeah, it was back in the 1700s.
Ooh, and to think with medical care at that time, she survived all those births.
Where's everybody sleeping? That is...
No one's sleeping.
Well, they didn't have indoor plumbing, so that was a blessing. Like, just get outside.
Oh, my goodness.
Hey, it said survived infancy. We don't know how long they lived.
But she didn't. How did she have kids for that many years? That is...
Okay, what's the most popular birth month?
Oh, September.
I'll say May, just because that is my birth month, and it's talking about Mother's Day.
August and September are usually the highest.
Are they? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
yeah.
The winter season. You get pregnant in the winter.
I think that
do
would be
have
around
one
Christmas.
that was born in September. So
yeah, there you go.
Okay, what's the least popular?
Oh,
I have one in this month.
Do you? Okay.
June.
February then.
February.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have one in February.
Huh. All right. What percentage?
Hang on. Here's a fun fact. She was conceived on Mother's Day.
Oh.
All right. Moving on.
What percentage of babies are actually born on their due dates?
15%.
I'll say 40.
It's only 5.
Oh,
5%.
5? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
You think about hitting the date exactly. That was
true.
Yeah.
I never had any of my kids born on their due date, so I probably shouldn't have said 40%.
Me neither, actually. Okay.
Molly, I went into labor on my due date, but she was born past midnight, so technically she didn't come on her due date.
Okay.
What's the longest interval between the birth of 2 children, like to the same mother?
2 days?
No, this is the longest.
Oh, I was thinking like they're having twins, and how long did it take to deliver them?
I'm going to go, since the first lady told us about, I'm going to go with 40 years.
41.
Really?
What?
Oh
Yeah.
my goodness. Wow, that's crazy.
Can you imagine?
I think the mom was 60 when the second child was born.
How is that even possible?
If we have a listener right now who has a 40-year gap between children, we want to interview you.
Yes. Yeah.
This one's kind of weird. The youngest recorded mother is Lena Medina, who gave birth to a boy in Lima, Peru in 1939. How old was she at the time?
11.
I'll say 8.
Almost 6.
What? How is that even possible?
I looked it up in several places. I don't even want to think about that, but that I read that in several places.
Seems really cruel. What year was that, did you say?
1939.
Oh, that is
I don't know how that's possible.
Crazy.
Yeah. Mother's Day is the biggest holiday in the United States for what? For what thing?
Flowers?
Cards.
Those are both true, but they said actually for phone calls that Verizon noticed a 13% increase in voice calls on Mother's Day.
Yes, that's
good.
Nice.
Yeah. That's a good one.
Yeah. Definitely call your mom on Mother's Day if you're not already seeing her.
Definitely.
Yeah. This was fun, you guys. Mothering ourselves out of a job. It's a process, but we are going into Mother's Day weekend, so we want to wish everybody a happy Mother's Day, and then make sure you wish your own mom a happy Mother's Day.
Happy Mother's Day to each of you.
Oh,
you
happy
guys
Mother's
too.
Day.
Have an awesome weekend.
You too.
We'll see you back here next week.
All right. Bye.
Okay. Sounds great. Bye, girls.
We're so happy you joined us today. You can find the show notes for this episode at midlifematterspodcast.com. Also, please tell a friend about the show and help them hit the free subscribe button on their favorite podcast app. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at Midlife Matters Podcast. That's where we post pictures and stories about all the things we talk about in each episode. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.